Good afternoon, everyone. Let's do a quick sound check. Hopefully you can hear and see us well. What's going on, Coach Paul? How you doing?
Good, Coach Jay. A sharply unchanged day for me. How about yourself?
Decent day for me. Decent day. Traded in this Topstep combine. Looking to get this combine into an XFA because we're working on trading these more on Topstep TV. So we had a decent up day in this account. That's where most of my focus was today. But a pretty good day. It was kind of a wild day in the markets, but presented some opportunity. We're getting some confirmations that we sound good in the chat. Thank you all
You
for
always
that.
sound good.
Look good, feel good, right? Is that what Deion Sanders said? Look good,
Yeah,
feel good, or pay good, something like that. Something like that. I
he
misquoted
said
that.
something.
He said something. He said something for sure. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I am Coach Jay, been a Topstep Performance Coach for a little over a year now. I've been trading for about 11 years. Started off with trading stocks and options, moved over to futures about 5 years ago. The reason the segment is called At the Buzzer because Coach Paul and I are both basketball coaches in another life and kind of bringing that experience to coaching traders at Topstep. Coach Paul, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and then we will get into these markets.
Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Paul. I've been trading futures for a better part of, or at least involved in the futures industry for 4 decades. Um, I've also traded options. I've traded just about any future you can imagine. And I'm here to help maybe share some of my journey to help you um, discover yours. We're here at Top Step to educate and help people get over the hump. So, in this edition, we're here to review and maybe something there that helps you become a better trader.
And that is why we're here. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. The way we're going to start every segment, we want to talk about the top percentage movers on the day. And these are going to be any of the markets that we can trade with Top Step accounts. We'll go over the top three to the downside and to the upside. So, to the downside, coming in at number three, we have crude oil down 2.23%. Heating oil down 2.4%, and micro Ethereum futures, this is the second day in a row, it's been the largest percentage mover to the downside, 3.82%. I actually looked at micro Ethereum yesterday. I think it's 5 cents a tick, uh, which I know we talk about risk management. That's a little bit too much risk management.
Ye-
It's a little too much. I think micro Bitcoin might be the one to trade. Um,
well, yeah, I haven't. It's funny you bring up Ethereum. I don't even think about it, but maybe I should at a
well,
bigger.
yeah, trade 100 contracts of the micros, maybe. Um, to the upside, we have corn futures up 1.55%. We have wheat up 1.9%, and lean hogs up 2.24% for our biggest percentage movers. To the upside, the farm got more expensive today. As far as our big four, we have ES up 1.3%, the NASDAQ up 0.27%. We already talked about crude down 2.2%, and gold, where's gold? Gold up 0.22%. Not much of a move in those markets as far as settlement to today's close, but a lot of movement in between that. As far as news goes, we didn't have too much on the calendar. We know everyone again is waiting for the Super Bowl tomorrow, but we did have a consumer confidence number out today, and kind of basic assessment of that consumer confidence number. Consumers are looking at the labor market still in a positive light, but that sentiment is starting to weaken a little bit, and we've seen that in the unemployment numbers that we had with unemployment numbers going up. So consumers are a little worried about the labor market going forward. We also did have Fed Mester saying that they do not support a 50 basis point cut in the rates right now. And I did check the Fed Watch tool. Right now, we're seeing a 65.5% chance of a 65.5% probability of a 25-point basis cut, and 35.5%, 50 basis point cut. It's a lot to say there.
It was easy for you to say.
Um, but let's get into the markets that we trade. We did have some trades in the house account today, so we will go over those as well. But let's talk about the 30-minute on the NASDAQ. Coach, we've been talking about these markets being in balance over the last couple of days, and today kind of seemed like more of that. If we're looking at the 20, 50, and 200 moving averages, this is on a 30-minute chart. The 200 moving average is the white one up here. The 50 is purple, and the 20 is going to be yellow. And we can see, again, those moving averages under the 200 moving average, so somewhat a slight lean towards the downside. But the 20 and the 50 kind of being wrapped around each other leads to balanced market. Now, in a higher time frame, if we zoom out a little bit, maybe on a daily chart, if we were on that, we can see this area, this range that we are in, but still a lot of indecision right now in the equities, Coach. What are you seeing
Yeah, a
from it?
lot of indecision and balance. Like you said, it's earnings season, and I guess it's really just NVIDIA earnings season.
Right,
But good, some opportunity, but it was, like we talk about, sharply unchanged.
right.
Um, Interestingly enough, the low was my first support at
Yeah,
19,449. Bounced off of that, went to the pivot, and basically finished at the pivot. That is a classic balanced market.
yes, it is.
There is, and someone put here, S&Ps didn't even reach 1 million contracts.
Interesting.
So extremely light volume. Um, and other factors, it's towards the end of the month.
Yes, it is. You talked about that
Um,
yesterday. What does that
yeah,
mean? What does that mean? What are you looking at towards the end of the month?
end of the month, and this has been a pretty wild month. Um, some institutional traders get paid by the month.
Yep.
Then we're going to put on a big risk in front of a big number at the end of the month. They're going to be safer.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the middle of probably the monthly range if I look at that. And it's been pretty decent trading this month. So also, it's the end of summer. Um, so I'm not surprised. I think
Yeah.
this we backed into the summer trading at the end of the summer.
Right. Yeah, we've been talking about seeing the ranges come down, a little bit of indecision, and again, they're still decent ranges, right? We had uh, about a 250 point range in the Nasdaq today, and let's talk about that a little bit. George Williams had a question. What are these green lines? I do want to point some of these out. Coach Paul, you were saying that you had a pivot down at 449 in the Nasdaq.
Yeah,
Um,
that was first support.
there you go. First support. Um, These levels are on the Top Step Daily Levels webpage. I just put that in the wrong chat. I'm going to put that in the right chat. I'm going to put that in the YouTube chat so you guys have that. Again, these Top Step Daily Levels are levels that all of our coaches are putting inputs in. Myself, Coach Paul, Coach Ray, Coach Vince, Coach Jack, and of course, Hoag's levels as well. And these are just areas of opportunity that we're looking at. We're thinking, hey, the market potentially has um, the ability to trade towards these levels. They're not trade signals, and we're not saying, hey, buy here, sell here, but they're areas where we think the market can interact with. And we've seen a lot of interaction with that today. Coach had this 19,449 support. I had a buy side imbalance down here as well. And again, we don't get to choose how the market trades down here, but I'll tell you what this was based off of. You guys know for my trading, it's all volume based. And if we look back, right, some of the last time we traded these prices, um, what that level came from was August 15th, the highest volume candle from August 15th outside of the open or the close, right? You guys know I map out these volume candles all the time. So the high of that candle was 19,476. The low of it was 19,405, and 50% of that candle was 19,441. If we go back over to today, the low of the day was 19,441.50. I don't know why 50% retracements work all the time. There's an algo somewhere in the world that's coded to trade around those prices. But we see it happen time and time again, and that was this low, right? So a lot of confluence in that area. We have Coach Paul's support. We have a buy side imbalance. We have a ton of other levels. I know Coach Ray had a level down there as well, 447. And again, these are not suggestions to take trades. Anything we do talk about are for educational and entertainment purposes only. But if you can identify a trade from these areas of opportunity, and manage your risk, they present pretty decent trades. And then to the upside, the one that we have up here to the upside was a sell side imbalance, and this came from yesterday. So yesterday, it wasn't the highest volume candle yesterday, but I did map this one out because it kind of started our breakdown. The high of the candle is 19,718. The low is 19,656. And you can see I have a few of these mapped out, right? Where this was the highest volume candle here. That was at 9:30 Central Time. So I mapped out both of those. But 50% of this candle here, 19,687. And you can see where our high was on the day, 19,694. This is the NASDAQ, so it's never going to be perfect. But,
No, it's not.
we looked 7 points above that, and that set the high on the day. We did have some house account trades today, a couple of shorts early on, which I thought were really nice trades. We can see, the market once it opened, and here's the New York session open right here. We opened right around 19,525 and sold off to that buy side imbalance that we saw down here to this support. Initially, the first trade we took was a short 19,504. And I think the team was, targeting some of these areas. There was also a level we talked about, 19,420 below. And it was a winning trade, right? Winning trade, I think that put us up $3,000 on the day. And then we continued to take shorts. And we took another winning short, 19,581. 19,581. And again, I liked this short as well because of this high volume node that we had here, right? We can see we rejected kind of at 50% of this. This is 19,590. But at that point in the day, if we look at VWAP, Coach,
Yeah.
we reclaimed the VWAP. And I think that's when the shorts stopped working. They were really nice until then. But once we got back above that, buyers kind of took control. We really held VWAP the rest of the day. Anything you want to mention on that, Coach?
Yeah, I would say that early selling stopped,
Yep.
got accumulated, went right back to unchanged, which
Right.
would be well within the expectation of this day.
Right.
They didn't make it easy.
No, not at all.
And it never will be easy. But understand, also, those trades, they were good, and not all trades work out,
Right.
and sometimes we get caught of thinking a good trade can be a loser. Bad
Yeah,
trade can be a winner.
absolutely.
So yeah, once it turned, got I put a VWAP on the half an hour, the opening half an hour, anchored
Okay.
it, and then that saved me from fighting it. It closed above the VWAP on the anchored VWAP on the first half an hour after hitting support, and I was pretty confident it was going to come back
Yeah.
to the pivot. But that's the way the ball bounces.
Yeah. And it kind of goes with what we've been talking about with this market being range bound, where we looked like we were going to extend the range lower. But we've had some people mention as well, the ES didn't even hit 1 million contracts traded. This move down happened on lower volume, so the follow through wasn't there. Again, we know that the market is waiting for this Nvidia news to come out. So again, when we look at it in hindsight, it's, hey, we're still in this higher time frame range bound market. Um, but you put on a trade idea, we don't know what the market is going to do, right? We have the luxury of looking at this after it closed, but kind of framing out ideas, patterns for what we're seeing. We kind of chopped around VWAP. VWAP was pretty much a flat angle the entire day, which tells us, and what we've seen is that be range bound trade. Um, a lot of the same in the ES. We'll go out to a 30-minute chart in the ES. We have VWAP here. I'm going to throw Coach Paul's moving averages back on for a minute. A little bit of a difference in the ES. The ES is above the 200 moving average on the 30-minute, where the NASDAQ is below it. I'll take some of these drawings off for now. But again, you can barely see these moving averages because they're so braided around each other, right? When we see the market trend, there's a clear distinction between these. We don't have that right now, right? Look at the difference between this trending market and this balanced market that we have. Markets in decision-making mode, or kind of just digestion about what happened. And the ES is not very far from all-time highs, and they very well could happen tomorrow if we do get a great report out of NVIDIA. But, for right now, we're just hanging out.
Yeah. And this is probably my expectation is this is going to happen again tomorrow.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that for sure. The Nvidia earnings are after the close tomorrow. We're probably not going to see large positioning or directional moves. And of course, anything can happen, right? Something might come out that changes that. But with everything as it is, I expect a lot of the same tomorrow as well. So that's kind of it
We
on
have
the
a
equities.
question
Go ahead. Yep.
from Will S. Coach Jay, when you displayed the VWAP earlier, was that full session?
Yes, so that was full session. I use a couple of different VWAPs, but this was full session. This blue line that you see here, and then anytime I anchor one, it'll be a yellow, and I'll let you guys know if I anchor where I anchor those to. A lot of times I'll anchor them to the market open, the New York session open, which is 8:30 Central, or any kind of high volume nodes that you find. I'll anchor them there as well. One thing I did want to point out, and let's go back to, I want to go back to the NASDAQ for a second. And we've kind of talked about this, just going back to VWAP. I'm going to anchor a VWAP to the Globex session open for yesterday's trade. So this is going back to August 25th, 5 p.m. Central Time. And a lot of the trades that I made in this account on the NASDAQ came in this range. If you guys have read, we've had Brian Shannon on as a guest on Topstep TV. He wrote the book on anchored VWAP. What we can kind of see right here, right? This blue line is the full session VWAP. This yellow one is 2-day VWAP, right? So this is not today's session, it's yesterday's session. When we get in between these two, and we look at the time that this happened, right? This happened during lunchtime, where we know it's a lower volume session. Most of the trades that I took in this account, and let me see if I can just pull up the executions and show you guys. There's going to be a lot of executions, but I was just playing around with range bound trade. Let me zoom out. A lot of executions here. Actually, that makes the chart look insane, but we'll look at the price action. We kind of just bounced around between those two VWAPs until the market decided to move out of them. Let me anchor that again. All right, there we go. You can see it a little clearly now. Yeah, we just kind of pinged back and forth between these two VWAPs for about an hour, right? An hour where we at the high, at the low, and just, fading the extremes of the range, where I'm buying at the lows, selling at the high until we see a break of that range. And then once we get a break of the range, adjusting and saying that is no longer a trade that I'm going to continue to take. So just a way to look for range bound markets. If you see a VWAP pinch this way, it's a good way to limit your risk, where I'm, again, buying at the lows and selling at the highs. Anything else you got on the equities, Coach, before we move on?
No, someone has a question here. Anuj, what is the length of your ATR for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes? Do you have any criteria to set the lengths? I For anchored, I use the first half an hour, the 30-minute bar after it closes. It gives me an idea if it's buying or selling in the first half an hour and if it fits my bias. I'll also put one on the night session to see how that works too.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Coach. And Coach, you should be able to see my screen now, hopefully.
Yep.
All right,
Now I
awesome.
can.
Awesome. All right, so
I've seen it so many times, I visualized it.
right, you can see it in your sleep, right? Um, so that's it on the equities. Again, expecting a lot of the same action tomorrow before Nvidia, and obviously we'll be doing this segment tomorrow when that Nvidia earnings is released, and we'll talk about how that might affect the markets because we will see it in the market's reaction. Let's move on to gold real quick, and then we're gonna go to crude oil. Crude oil, I think, presented one of the better opportunities for the day, but if I'm looking at gold, it doesn't look too bad today either. Some of the same areas that we marked out and we talked about yesterday, right, where we marked out this area 25.45 at the highs of this range where we saw some volume coming in, and 25.39 is 50% of this area. And I'll tell you what this is. We marked out this candle, and this was the candle, the Jackson Hole candle, right? So as soon as Powell started talking on Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time, we saw a big spike in volatility in gold. That range, again, 25.45 to 25.32. 50% of that range is 25.39. The market has been respecting that range since that candle printed, right? We either test down into 50% of it. You can see we're starting to respect 50%. This happened overnight. We bounced there a few times, but the market is respecting these prices right now. Again, gold not very far from all-time highs. 25.74 is the all-time high in gold. And right now it just feels like a matter of time before we push that all-time high the way this market is holding up.
Coach, put that 200-day, 200 bar moving average in that gold.
I got you. Here is the 30-minute chart. Let's take the drawings off again, and we will look at the moving averages. And what's that white line, Coach?
That's the 200 bar moving average. Um,
I've heard it referred to as the Great Wall, and we see it so many times get respected this way for good reason.
yeah, that boy, that gold just no. I don't want to be dramatic. I'm glad one thing, and I'll bring it up here again for our new viewers is I look at one side of any market I'm trading. I'm
Hmm.
either coming in there trying to buy it or sell it, but not to buy low and sell high.
Yeah,
Gold has given some beautiful opportunities just if on the buy side. If you could, I mean, that was a classic example.
yeah.
Um, do a little volume analysis. Look at that volume on
Right.
those lows after at the U.S. Open.
Let's go to a
So eight
shorter time
o'clock.
frame, and we'll do that.
Yeah, the
I'm
eight
moving.
o'clock Open Central
So
Time.
8 Central right here. Here's your volume at the lows.
Okay,
I'm going to frame out
so we
this
had
one.
yeah, they had big volume. Look
And
at
that's
that selling. They couldn't take it lower even right after that.
this one here.
Oh
This
wow.
downward candle, that was the uh, consumer confidence came out at that time, right? So that's a reaction to news where we can frame that out. And again, if you can find a place to limit your risk in this, and I can kind of eyeball this now, but we can see the market respecting 50% of this. I want to talk about that a little bit where sometimes when we identify decent trade location, we may have to wait, right? Where we get this reaction to consumer confidence, we see high volume, maybe we want to buy it on the breakout of this. Uh, but even if you took this trade, right? Let's say you took this trade here and you made 8 points on gold from that breakout. Uh, Staying with the market that presented an opportunity sometimes provides you a very good opportunity to take the same trade. Right? A lot of times, I think traders may take this trade and be done with the market for the day, and that's okay, right? I don't want to make it seem like you have to sit here all day, but this market again presented a really nice opportunity for a secondary trade if you didn't catch this one. And again, you had to wait, where this is almost 2 hours of waiting for this market to revisit this price. But we came down, tested 50%. You could risk the lows of that candle where we saw the volume come in, and a really nice secondary trade from there. So if you see some of these things play out, maybe you have to set alerts, write it down on a piece of paper to remind yourself, hey, I want to check this market when it gets back to these prices. Um, there are opportunities in a lot of these trades.
Yeah, that one was a classic. And right back into your area, Coach. Framing out that candle
Yep.
nicely, 50% into it. Once again, holds in price. Um, Boy, gold just keeps bringing great opportunities.
Yeah,
I,
it really does. In
for,
the same prices as well, right? Where we haven't, it's not a trend, but these are, this here is a 15-point move in gold, which on a one lot, how much is that, coach?
$1,500 on a big
On a one lot.
micro, 150, two micros. I think this is the greatest place to trade micros.
Yeah, yeah, you did say that.
Uh, it's got some giddy up, all right, and you can handle the risk.
Right.
I mean, what's the average two range right now in that?
So this is a 3-minute chart, ATR on a 3-minute. I don't need two of them, but is 2.5 points. 2.5
It's
points during high volatile times.
$250 in
Right.
3 minutes
Yep.
range. No, do 5 micros or less, because
I think most of us could
that's
take that
just
risk.
the average. Yeah, you can pair out of them. You could get out of half of them at one ATR. Play with house money,
Right.
and it gives you that. I believe that the gold gives you that a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's kind of going to continue to do so if we stay in this pattern right now in gold. And again, this is an if, not a trade suggestion, but we're nearing the highs of this range now, right? Where it's if it's going to repeat this pattern, we fade the extremes, selling it at the highs, buying it at the lows until the pattern breaks. For me, if I'm going to confirm that a pattern is breaking, there has to be some volume behind it, right? If price kind of just floats up here, I consider that BS price action. If price just goes up here and there's no buying pressure behind it, there's no real buyers in here, right? That might be some shorter time frame traders, and I'm looking at that as they're not going to hold this market up when sellers really step in. And I'll trade that pattern until it breaks. So I will be looking potentially for a short in gold. Want to see where I can limit my risk. But a pattern is a pattern, and that's what we look for. Uh, Anything else on gold before we go, Coach? To the next one.
It's a barbarous metal. Um, it's one thing is, in all sincerity, gold is trades 24/7
Right.
versus an equity. So this is another thing to watch overnight.
Absolutely.
Gold trades very well overnight. It's not like we have to wait for New York Open. It's 24/7. It's a great place to trade.
100%. And then let's move on to, I think, what was the trade of the day. And I'm going to switch over the charts and let you take this one. If anyone remembers, maybe some of you do. And again, this is not a signals class like Dakota says, not a suggestion to take any trades in any direction, but we did hear that someone might be looking for a potential trade in crude oil if you saw something. So what did you see, Coach? Did you see enough to take the trade? And I'll let you go
But
from there.
let's review what happened yesterday.
Hmm.
And Crude had that big rally. And then as we analyzed it, most of that rally happened before the New York Open.
Correct.
And what happened, which was it stood out to me, is really that nothing happened after the New York Open. Really, it was done.
Right.
So we have and we've gone through this in Crude where it just rotates. So we have that big rally. We find balance, and we were talking about a place to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And looking under the 20 bar moving average. Um,
I'm going to go to a 30-minute.
yeah, let's go to a 30-minute.
All right. I'll take some of these drawings off. Actually, I want to leave them because we can see how the market responds to them. But here we go. Let's blow this up a little bit so we can find exactly what Coach Paul is talking about. We have, actually, I'm going to take this one off. We can see that this is a supply up here. Get out of here. Oh,
Okay.
drawings under drawings. What's going on here? Go. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Now, last night we had an attempt to rally. And one other thing is, I just want to be clear is with Crude, the crude we trade is specific to U.S. crude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's best waiting for the opening in New York. But last night we got underneath the 20 at night, popped back above it, a small loss. Had the big rally, but when volume came in this morning on the New York session, now let's frame that beast out.
Which one do you want to pick? So there's this one at 9 a.m. Central Time, or do you want to go to the open, which was 8 a.m. Central Time?
8 a.m.
8 a.m. All right. So I'm going to go down to a shorter time frame so we can frame out the 8 a.m. Central Time candle. And I can kind of see exactly what you're talking about, this volume that came in here.
Yeah, that's the opening volume, right?
Yep.
It's usually the biggest volume of the day. And let's frame that out. And now we're under the 20 and a half hour.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked yesterday, whose burden is it to keep it going?
Right.
In the situation we're in Crude, which is flopping both ways.
Right.
You know, the levels we shall not talk about. So let's frame that out and let's see. We're under the 200 in this time frame. We're right at it. So I can that's a great place to lean. That's kind of a cheap trade.
Yep. Exactly what we're looking for.
Not kind of. It is.
It is.
You
And it gave
know?
you a couple of opportunities to do it, right? If I'm looking at VWAP here, these moving averages, it hung out for a little while.
It did. It hung out, but then let's attach or anchor VWAP to that first opening bar.
I'm going to take the moving averages off so we can see that. And there we go.
And now that's giving us information, right? It's and by the way, this, I don't look at that. I see that as commercial selling. What do I mean? That market participants who are in this market all the time.
Yep.
This isn't you and I putting on one lots, right?
I'm not moving the market.
Yeah, they're moving it, and they have an interest in doing that, whatever that is. And we talked yesterday. We've been on this roller coaster of violently unchanged for the year, looking for a place to sell it. On the half hour, it was under. Now we go into a smaller time frame. We were getting even more information. And just looking at that, if we just go move that chart just to the opening and without the, what do we see there?
In the next, so we opened, and in the next 3 minutes, volume left that range to the downside, right? Not just price. We're seeing VWAP also leave the range, which means sellers are pushing this lower.
That's real selling. It's not
Correct.
price based, it's volume based.
Right.
And that's, to me, one of the greatest things that's come to trading is the VWAP, because before we're just looking at price.
Right.
This is volume weighted. This is
who's moving the market.
who's moving the market.
and it was
So
sellers today.
as as we went through, you can frame out your risk if you want to, whatever it is, 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Do a 2 lot minis and take one and let one run. However you want to manage it, but getting on the right side, that
Yeah.
really helps right there. As a matter of fact, that was such good selling they couldn't find a buyer. Right?
No, not one that was convinced for a long time, right? Maybe a quick scalp trade. But coach, this is what we talk about, kind of getting in the flow. Let's say if you were a buyer, right? Because we know that there's going to be counter trend traders all the time. How do you look at this as a buyer, right? Where again, we want to make sure we have good trade location. But if you're a buyer and the flow is to the downside, when you frame out your trades, you have to be thinking, hey, there's X amount of opportunity in these trades for me. Let's look at these counter trend moves. There is a 40 tick move counter trend before we sell off. Here's another 25 tick move. Here is
I love
another
that.
40 tick move. Not a lot of opportunity to the buy side where we may have had traders that were looking to buy this. Um, when the market starts to trend, if you are that counter trend trader, you have to identify that and kind of frame out how much opportunity the market is presenting for you, right? I could have bought crude oil here at 76.60 because I thought this was a support and said, hey, we need to trade back up to 80, the number that should not be mentioned. So it probably wasn't happening today. But the market wasn't presenting opportunities to get back up to 80, right? We see VWAP, it's holding the market lower. You kind of got to take what the market is giving you. Where if I came into crude today and said I need to buy it and make $3,000 today to pass my combine, probably had a hard time, right? Because I'm not identifying what the flow of the market was, and that's to the downside. If you were a seller, again, you still need good trade location because we can get location right and direction wrong. But you had a little bit of an easier time as a seller today.
Yeah, good. We have a question from his Royal Trade. Still
Hmm.
learning crude. What is the best time you guys have found to trade it?
Hmm.
We just went through it. 8 a.m. Central
Hmm.
is when the volume comes. I think that's the best time to start your analysis. Determine your time frame and trade it from there.
100%.
Um,
And
how
we
about
have
you,
seen some.
Coach?
We have seen some. Yeah, I would trade it, for the market open. But that's when I'm trading most of the markets that I trade. What I do like about crude is that it opens a half hour earlier than the equities, so you can get some trades in before the equities open. Um, but outside of that, we have seen it move in London as well. So right around 3 a.m., kind of 4 a.m. Central Time, we have seen some moves and some volume pickup there as well. So if you're watching Deanna during the London Open. Maybe you can get her to talk about some crude oil.
Yeah. Coach Hoop, thank you. London is Brent crude, and that's a good time. But also, depending where you're at, if actually sometimes London's better time to trade crude.
Right,
But if you're in the U.S., I would still be, if you're in, we're day trading. I think waiting for the 8 o'clock open to get gives you a better idea because there's more volume.
for sure. Good stuff. Well, we got through those four markets pretty quick. I think because a lot has not been happening in the equities.
Mm.
But shout out to you, Coach Paul. Let's get some thumbs up, some likes on the video for Coach Paul and this crude short. I really love the analysis that we do, you know, but we say it all the time. We don't get paid to analyze the markets. We get paid to trade the markets and execute on our analysis. So hit that like for Coach Paul, not only analyzing the short in crude, but then going ahead and taking the short as well, because we need to be in the markets to make money from them. Um,
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game, you got to have it. So one other thing, and Coach, I know we've been doing this scouting report. I did get a message from Coach Jack. Coach Jack, one of our top step coaches. Love Coach Jack. He's trading the Ags all the time, and we know he focuses a lot on corn. So for a scouting report today, if I can, I'm going to throw this in for Coach Jack. He's looking at potential, upside in corn. If we look at this market, from a technical perspective, not sure how many traders we have that have even traded corn or know that we can trade corn. But if you look at this market from a technical perspective, it's been under very heavy sell pressure. Coach Jack mentioned to me a long in corn this morning right off the open, and we can kind of see what looks like a short covering rally. He's expecting some more of this, right? And maybe a recovery over 400 in corn. And again, these are not suggestions to take a trade, but areas of opportunity. And I'm bringing this up because corn was number 3 on our top percentage movers to the upside today. I'll pull up the moving averages one more time, and where we rejected, what's that white line, coach?
I don't know. What is it, coach?
The 200 moving average.
Is that the tick to the tick?
A little over it, but
Okay.
something that we
Good enough for
see
government work.
exactly. Again, this may be a market that you have not traded before, but from a technical perspective, it's doing what we've seen the other markets do as well, right? Where we're in a downtrend, the 20 and the 50 are below the 200. The market kind of got overextended, and this 20 and this 50 moving average starting to braid around each other, and we pop right back up to that 200 moving average. Again, shout out to you, Coach Paul, for using these moving averages because I look at them all the time in my trading now.
That gives you an idea. And
Yes,
they're
it does.
dynamic. The one reason believe me, I'm not just using, we've had this, is not using just a moving average.
Right, right.
It helps tell the story of what's going on.
Correct, correct. Um, let's see. So we got a few other questions. We did go over the 4 major markets and one extra. So let's see. We got some questions here from Guillermo. How do you configure the DOM to output the bid and ask values and the number of contracts? So Guillermo, good question. On the DOM, in order to see multiple levels, you are going to need level 2 data. You can subscribe to level 2 data on the TopStep site. It is $39 a month. And I feel like anytime anyone asks this question, we're always at the end of the month. So I have to mention this. The cost for that data feed gets charged every month and it's not prorated. So we are at August 27th. If it's something that you want to add to your trading, just wait until September because you'll pay now and then you'll pay again on September 1st. Just trying to save you 40 bucks. But you will need level 2 data in order to see multiple levels on the DOM.
Got a question from Anuj
Okay.
Shukla about the ATR, the average true range, which is set to default at 14. Do you change this setting when you move to a higher time frame like 15? No, because if 14 bars has been tested out by many, it's been around for almost as long as I have. That's a long time.
Right.
Actually, got developed by one of the fathers of technical analysis, Wells Wilder. And 14 is very present. If you go too far out, it doesn't change that much. Now, once in a while, I will compare it to 100 or a 200 average. Like a couple weeks ago when the market was very volatile, to get a more of a historical perspective. But decisions are made with the 14.
There we go. Thank you for that, Coach. And then I got one more question from NJ. Can you please talk about the anchored VWAP to the New York Open? How do we play anchored VWAP for quick MNQ scalps during the US market hours? How do you decide short or long trade? What's the stop loss and time frame? So that is somewhat of a loaded question. There's a lot there. Um, but I'll tell you how and why I use anchored VWAP from the session open. And anyone who joined at the buzzer while we were doing this in Discord kind of knows exactly this setup. And it doesn't play out all the time, but first thing I'm going to do, I use a 3-minute chart for opening range breakouts. Some traders use a 1 minute, some use 5, some use 15. For me, I use 3. So first thing I'm going to do every day is frame out the 3-minute opening range and anchor a VWAP to that opening range. Now, the way I'm reading this, and again, we don't get to see the markets like this. We see it like this. I'm going to take this volume off of here so it's out of the way. But I'm reading the range and then how the market is responding to that range, right? So in the first 6 minutes of the market, VWAP is still in the range, right? It hasn't left the range. So the market has not chosen a direction yet. Next 3 minutes, the market leaves and VWAP is leaving, which means sellers are, at least in this short time frame, in control. So what I'm looking for is a break outside of the opening range, a candle to close, and then potentially taking a short somewhere near this VWAP, if not on the opening range. Today, we got a quick push off of it. We see volume left, but remember, we talked about this demand, all this demand, Coach Paul's support that we had down here, and we bounced. So just because VWAP is leaving the range to the downside does not mean that the market is going to stay in that direction. We want to kind of pay attention to everything, right? We crossed back above this VWAP back into the opening range. At this point, I'm not looking for a short unless the market leaves the opening range to the low, and we can start to see VWAP trend up. Now, this VWAP is above the 3-minute opening range, which means in regards to these prices, buyers are in control. And we can see it from the price action, but we can see it in VWAP as well. And last thing I want to do, Coach, if I see this like this, right? We turn around. I tried to buy it. I tried to short it down here. The market popped up, and I'm like, damn it, the market should have been a short. And I'm shorting it again in these. And then finally we break out here, and I'm like, fine. If you're gonna go up, I'm just gonna buy it, right? That's what you want to do, market. You want to go up, I'm gonna buy it, and I'm buying it here, 19,650. Coach, what's the problem with this entry right here?
How far away are you from VWAP or volume?
How
When I
far
use the
are
word volume, I'm going to be talking about VWAP.
correct?
Just
Correct. So what coach is saying is, so a lot of us, we probably dealt with that frustration, right? Where we wanted to short it because it looked like a great short. We held on to that bias until the market ran 200 points in the opposite direction. And then we said, you know what, damn it, you're going to go up, fine, I'll buy it. And you are the last buyer at the party. VWAP at this point was 100 points away from where the market was trading, right? We see VWAP all the way down here. This is pretty extended. I'm going to put the ATR back on here, and we may be getting a little technical, but that's okay. You get the idea. This is 5 ATRs away from VWAP. Simple terms, it's too high, right? I don't know if anyone is from New York, but you remember that politician who said the rent is too damn high. The price of the market at this point is too damn high for you to be buying it up here. Um, and we get the retracement, right? We do get this retracement to VWAP. We see it hold. And now this gives you a better opportunity to limit your risk on the buys. Because as we see this VWAP leaving the range, we know that this is showing us the average price of buyers. We see this start to hold as a support, and
wow.
this lets us limit our risk. Trading right back up to these highs where the last person at the party is hoping for some friends to show up.
Feeling lonely.
Right. Right.
I had a question about options.
Okay.
I don't know if I lost it here.
I got it. Dan Trader. I don't know about options, but can anyone tell by their volume positioning and or delta what the NVIDIA range is expected to be? I feel like that's a Nick for a Tick question. I
I
think,
I
go ahead.
I would throw out there probably about mimicking the Nasdaq.
Mm,
I don't know. I don't follow the stocks, but I imagine Nasdaq and Nvidia kind of are cousins.
yeah. So Nick is on Topstep TV tomorrow. I'm gonna ask him that question, Dan. I'm gonna send Nick a DM and ask him about that and see if he can explain it a little bit on Topstep TV tomorrow because he will be on Fast Markets. Speaking of Nick, if you don't know already, he does a market prep session every Sunday, 4:45 Central Time. Market kickoff and a lot of the options information, which is kind of driving the markets right now. Nick does a great job of explaining that, so I would suggest checking that out. A ton of programming all day at Topstep. We have Dakota doing slow markets Sunday through Thursday, 7:30 Central Time. Deanna with the London Open at 3:30 a.m. Central Time. She did have Francis Green on this morning. I did watch a little bit of that segment. Deanna and Francis, really good back and forth conversation. Then we have the daytime show, and of course, myself and Coach Paul for At the Buzzer at 3:15 Central Time. Coach Ray and Coach Vince are still doing classes in Discord every day, 6 p.m. Central for Coach Ray, 7 p.m. Central for Coach Vince. A lot of information, a lot of education, all through TopStep to hopefully help you with your trading journeys. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, got to make sure we mention this. Personal loss limits change in TopStep programming over the last couple of days, but any new accounts in TopStep X, whether that be a reset account, newly minted XFA, or a newly purchased account, is not going to have a standard loss limit. So it's up to you as the trader to set that loss limit for yourself, giving you control over your trading. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but you can set your loss limits to as much or as little as you want. We suggest setting it to something that makes sense with your trading. You want to know what your average wins and losses look like and set it around there. The way you're going to do that, go to the settings tab, go to risk settings, and you can set your personal loss limits in here. So you pick a value, choose the action, liquidate, and save. Now, when I hit a $750 loss, the program is going to liquidate that position, and I can still trade from here because I chose liquidate. But if I choose liquidate and block, that is going to lock me out from trading for the rest of the day.
Liquidate and block.
That's the option.
That's the option. I believe it's the best option.
Yep.
I use it myself. I love it. I think it's revolutionary. I think any platform, any platform that has that,
Yeah.
TopStep is way ahead of the curve on this. And I'll just go through it one more time. When you're in full tilt, I don't know if anyone can pull you out. And just to have that is such a great thing. I know a lot of people in the retail and in the trading world that would not only need that but welcome it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so make sure you set one. Make sure you set one. Don't try to be a hero. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face where you could say, hey, I'm going to use, a mental stop. And then the market drops 50 points lower than you expected it to. And you're hoping that it comes back so you can lose less. Just, accept the risk before you put the trade on, define it, and then you can, continue to build on it from there. Coach, you got anything else before we go? We got a few
Yeah,
minutes left.
one last question.
Hmm.
Trade another day said, Coach Paul, doesn't most of the bigger traders use the options and the spreads? It's a good question. Yes, there are big traders using options. It's another form of, risk management. I use options. I've spent a lot of time on options. But I will tell you this, all that volume comes back to the futures market. Or if you're in stocks, those individual stocks, that volume comes back to the underlying market.
Mm.
Um, so sometimes when we see big orders come in, like we started seeing a couple weeks ago, whether it's 500, 1,000,
Yep.
my first feeling was there were some option market makers looking to lay something off, or before they get into it. When I was in the bond option, in the treasury options, or in the grain options, here I'll give you a quick story. I was in the grain options running a very large uh, hedge company,
Okay.
and this was this was early on, and when options were only about 5 years old, 5 years, and the older guys in the futures pit were bitching and moaning about, look at all that volume in the options.
Mm.
I mean, I was in meetings, and what they didn't understand was every trade from a market maker's perspective, they wouldn't put the trade on unless they get the futures off.
Okay.
So it comes back to the futures, if that makes sense. So when you see big, they have to go to someone, right? On a big trade in the options, market makers aren't there betting the direction.
Okay.
They don't, they despise direction, right? They
Interesting.
have to get their levels of volatility.
Makes sense.
So they look to the futures to lay off that risk. Covered call. I don't want to get deep into it. We can't trade options, but understand this. It's called delta.
Yeah.
They lay off their deltas in the futures, and it creates volume in the futures.
Good to know.
I hope that makes sense.
Makes sense to me, and again, I speak to Nick a lot about the options data because we talked about even zero DTE options right now affecting price action, right? So it's another form of volume that is affecting price, and we see how often the market reacts around some of these levels. But I don't have anything else for this session. I think it's been a really good session, really informative. Thank you, Coach, as always, for everything you do. And to everyone joining us, I see a record number of watching for today. Right now, I'm seeing about 500 people watching. So thank you all for joining us. Hopefully, any of the information that we shared today has helped you in your trading. Hopefully, we answered your questions. Coach, you got anything before we go?
Yeah, Coach, great job. Really enjoy working with it, as you know. And for our viewers out there, hit that like button.
Hit it 3
And
times.
also save some questions. We do like to help you in your journey. That's why we're here. And let's get at it again tomorrow.
Let's do it. If you do continue to trade today, make sure you manage your risk. Manage your risk at all times. It's the most important. Doesn't matter how much money you can make if you can't control how much you lose. Trade well, and we will talk to you all
One
tomorrow.
last,
Oh, go ahead,
do you
Coach.
have do you have us anything for the scouting report? I don't.
Uh, It's corn. It was from Coach
It's
Jack.
corn.
Yeah, corn. He's looking at short covering rally in corn, so I'm gonna keep that up on this side. I also told you about what I might have on a scouting report, Coach, but I'm gonna play around with those a little bit more before we pull that out. But Jack might be my new best friend on Topstep TV because I'm seeing some opportunity in some different markets. They start with a Z, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Uh,
All right. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, everyone. Have a great night. We'll talk to you all soon.